Hey, you guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Wednesdays. It is a gloomy Wednesday over here in North Carolina, but happy Wednesday nonetheless. Today we are back with a topic that I feel like is appropriate, especially as, we are bringing in a new season. We're winding down with summer. Fall isn't quite here yet, but we're starting to notice some of the weather changes. And so fall isn't just a season. Just like the leaves change colors, and eventually fall. The fall is oftentimes a time period when relationships change and people actually start to fall off. And so I often around this time hear things like, I thought we were closer than that. I can't believe they did me like that. Our relationship was like this. And I know it's not like this now, but why are they treating me differently? We have all of these questions and we get so offended when relationships change. But I feel like oftentimes we don't ever take a step back and really question it. Was that person a friend? Was this person truly family? Was this person a romantic partner? What are they? Do they have a category to go in, or were they just someone that we knew? So we're getting into the importance of classifying relationships. And so the language that we use sets the tones for the expectations that we hold. So if we call a friend, we are going to expect them to do certain things. If we call family family, we expect family to do certain things. And when they don't do that, we start looking at them like, but you're supposed to be family. You're not supposed to betray me. So the language that we use for the people in our lives, it matters. And categorizing these people isn't about ranking them, but it is about recognizing the role that people actually play in your life. Not the role that you want them to play, not the role that they should be playing, not the role that you think they would be good at. What role do they actually play in your life? And if you haven't considered that, maybe it's time to ask those questions and possibly recategorize certain people that are currently present in your life. So when we skip things like clarity and just throw people in our lives with vague labels, we often cause confusion, resentment, and disappointment. Because again, we have these expectations, and if they don't know what it takes to be a friend, and we have these expectations and they're not following through, we're the ones like disappointed that they didn't show up for us the way that we expected them to. We're the ones that are confused because I thought we were friends, but you can't do all of these things. Or, resentment of, oh, well, we're supposed to be friends, but we introduced sex, but now that I like you, but you don't like me, and now we don't know what to do. When we skip clarity and actually having a conversation and figuring out what this person can actually provide for your life, we have problems, as you guys can see. And so categories matter because they prevent unspoken assumptions. They lower the risk of disappointment. They help you set appropriate boundaries. They reduce unnecessary comparison, and they keep you grounded in reality. This is my favorite point on this slide. They keep you grounded in reality, not hope or history. So this goes to show that the role someone plays in our life right now might be very different than the role that they used to play in our lives. And it might be different than the role that they might play in the future. But it keeps us grounded in this reality, and it makes us ask the question, what role are they playing for us in this moment? And so a quote that I think is really, really important is, say what it is, not what you hope it becomes. So as you can see, we have different types of relationships. This is not all inclusive, but these are the ones that I feel like I often hear people talk about in sessions and often struggle with. So we have work relationships, we have, coworkers, we have friends and friendships, and then we have romantic relationships. And so, work relationships are typically professional, and they are often temporary and conditional. Friendships, on the other end, are typically non-transactional and support, and they're often voluntary and build over time. And then romantic relationships often have that emotional and physical intimacy component, and there are oftentimes shared goals or futures. So these are some things that are maybe distinct to the different types of relationships. What often gets messy when it comes up for clients and for people in general is when there is overlap. And so as you guys can see, this is a very loaded picture, and it's a lot in the overlap. And so when we have the overlap of a friend and a coworker, we have maybe blurred boundaries. Is this work support or is this personal loyalty? And then what happens if the person, prioritizes work over the friendship and possibly, takes a job that maybe you feel like you deserve, or maybe they report you for doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing? Then we're often looking angry, upset at them because they betrayed us, not realizing that coworkers don't really have loyalty to you. All of y'all are there to work. And when it comes down to it, they're likely going to choose themselves because this is, what they might need for their family. This is what they might need to get to the next step. So when those two relationships are blurred, it can really damage the relationship if something happens at work and the two of you don't agree, and that might leak over into the friendship. And so another one that often comes up, I feel like in sessions, is when friends and then this romantic aspect gets brought together. And this often looks like friends with benefits. So, we get along really, really well. We have that foundation. We have the emotional closeness. We have the mutual care and vulnerability. We have those things. Let's add sex to it. And oftentimes that can get messy because now are we friends or are we together? So, some commonalities that exist between friends and romantic relationships can be that emotional vulnerability and safety. But what happens when one person might catch feelings? What happens when one person wants to be exclusive and the other person doesn't? So again, these are oftentimes when it can get messy. And so you have to have a conversation. And I always emphasize, let's keep friends and friends, work at work, relationships, relationships. We don't need to be messing around with people at work because that can lead to gossip and judgment from coworkers. That can lead to retaliation risk if the relationship ends poorly. So there are issues that arise when we start overlapping relationships, and blurring the lines and not having those clear boundaries about what it means to be a friend, what it means to be a romantic partner, and what it means to be a coworker. And so just because you had sex with someone, or, you guys had some form of intimacy, does not mean y'all are in a relationship and y'all are dating. Just because y'all hang out at work all the time doesn't mean they owe you loyalty like a best friend would. So make sure you are clear on what these role expectations are too. So you're not disappointed when something happens and you're like, but I thought we were friends, but we were coworkers before. And work is always maybe going to come before the friendship to certain people. And so if you notice someone is putting you in a role that you do not want to be in, I feel like it is your responsibility to communicate that and set that boundary. Oftentimes I feel like we put the ball in the other person's court, and it's like, okay, I don't want this, but we still play into whatever it is going on. And so that boundary has not been set. And then oftentimes we get mad. Well, I've communicated to them, I want to be in a relationship. They keep telling me no, but we still keep doing these things that say that we're in a relationship. It's your job to set a boundary. So does that mean sex is off the table? Does that mean, y'all have to pick, are we going to date or are we going to be friends? It requires a conversation, and you're going to have to set a boundary to make things clear. So do not put that in the other person's court, because you can't guarantee that they're going to do something to change. If you have the issue with the role that you are in, communicate that with the other person so you guys can come to a consensus. And so relationships can get cloudy when the roles aren't clear, but the expectations are high. And expectations can really ruin a relationship. So it's important to address these roles appropriately. And so oftentimes, like I said, fall is a season where people are going back to school. It's a new job cycle. Holidays are approaching, and people are naturally shifting their time and their energy to new things and different things. And so if you are finding yourself feeling replaced maybe, or excluded or confused, it might be time to revisit the category this person falls into. And so some things to remember is that relationships will change. So, yes, you and your bestie may have been friends for 15 plus years, but it might be a challenging season for that person. And so maybe you guys aren't as close as you used to be. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not your best friend anymore, but the dynamics in the relationship have changed. Maybe the expectations have changed. And that is okay. Another thing that I think is important to remember is that you can outgrow a friendship without drama, and they can become an acquaintance. I think we oftentimes get caught up in like, oh yeah, they were my high school friend and y'all have not talked since high school, and that was probably like 10 years ago. They're not your friend. Yes, they were your friend in high school, but who are they now? They're probably likely an acquaintance. Y'all, keep up with each other here and there, might follow each other on social media, but y'all don't have any maybe one-on-one communication often about something deep and personal and intimate like a friendship would. A work friend may prioritize their job, and that is okay. Like I said, all of our values are different. And so if financial stability is someone's number one value, over maybe prioritizing a friendship, you cannot be angry with them for taking that promotion over you, or maybe reporting you because you're not doing your job the way that you're supposed to. And finally, romantic feelings may not always be mutual. Just because you like somebody, it is so important to ask that hard question, where do they stand with you? I know it's uncomfortable. It's going to require something to change, whether that be you have to do something different or they have to do something different. But it is important to get down to the nitty gritty. Do y'all have mutual feelings for each other? Yes or no? And I think this is a question that so many people want to avoid so much. So when it is time to evaluate and reevaluate the roles that people play in your life, it's important to have boundaries to protect your peace. So some ways to go about evaluating or reevaluating people's roles in your life is name the relationship out loud. And maybe question, are we as close as I thought? Do they play the same role in my life that I do as in theirs? What are my expectations for this person? Set access levels. So who gets your vulnerability? Who gets your time? This might help you differentiate the kinds of relationships that you are operating in. Check in with yourself and this other person. Are we still on the same page? Do we have the same common values? Do we have the same expectations on one another? Again, are you guys on the same page? And finally, don't force people to stay in roles they've already stepped out of. If they do not want to be in that role in your life, that is okay. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an issue with you. Maybe they just don't have the capacity to meet the needs or meet the demands of that role that maybe you have set, and that is okay. That might be their capacity thing, and it might not align with yours. And there's no issue, problem, wrong in that at all. And so the role someone plays in your life is based on who they are now, not who they used to be. And so I keep wanting to emphasize that, because I think we get so caught up in, oh, we were best friends in middle school, and now these big moments are coming up and I'm not part of them. Well, have you guys talked since middle school? What is y'all's relationship like now? We often get stuck in the past and are fearful of redefining and reevaluating and changing things that no longer work for us. But I think that's something that we should lean more into is, oh, this relationship is no longer serving me. Let me redefine that in a way that works best for me, so I'm not frustrated, disappointed, angry, have all of these expectations that I know this person cannot meet. So I think this is something that we need to lean more into, is redefining and reevaluating our relationships more often. You get to decide who fits where, but that means you have to know what your expectations are. What do you require from a romantic partner? What do you require from a coworker? What do you require from a friendship? So you have to know what your standards, boundaries, expectations, all of those things are before you start adding and bringing people into your life. So you know where they belong. And so I think it's important to make sure that the role that they are playing matches the treatment that you expect. Because these are your relationships. Yes, they're mutual, but you get to decide what works for you and what doesn't. And so I say all of this to say what it is, not what you hope it becomes. Define the relationship, set that expectation, and remember, language is not just communication, it is clarity. Language helps us be clear on what we need, what we want, what our expectations are, all of those things. And so please, please, please be mindful who you are calling your friend. Please, please, please be mindful who you are calling family. Please, please, please be mindful who you are calling your man. Because do they agree? You know, is there a common ground between you guys? That's so important to ask. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's Whiteboard Wednesday. It was a little different, but I like talking about relationships and their complexities because we all struggle with them sometimes. So I hope this was helpful for you all. I will see you guys next time. Bye. If classifying relationships is something that you're struggling with and you live in the Triad area, I have in-person appointment availabilities currently open. So head on over to the link in my bio to get that appointment inquiry form so you can get on the schedule and we can possibly work through this. Bye.